Thank you so much everyone for yet another amazing session. We have our next panel discussion starting very shortly. Our next panel discussion will be on defending IT infrastructure in the right way, moving from perimetric protection to holistic cyber strategy. We will wait for 2 minutes to begin the next panel discussion. Thank you. Thank you so much for your patience. We are starting our next panel discussion very shortly. Thank you. All right, so let's start the next panel discussion. Defending IT infrastructure in the right way, moving from perimetric protection to holistic cyber strategy. Can we please call our panelists to join us on stage? Dr. Makarand Sawant, Senior GM IT. Mr. Deepak, Fertilizers and Petrochemicals Corporation Limited. Mr. Saurabh Chatterjee, President and Head IT, Bajaj Allianz General Insurance. Mr. Narottam Sharma, Group CIO, Mastech. Dr. Lopa Mudra Basu, Executive VP Cyber Security and Technology Controls, APAC and EMEA, JP Morgan Chase and Company. The session is co-moderated by Mr. Alain Sanchez, CISO EMEA and Senior Evangelist Fortinet, and Mohammad Qasir Alam, Editor Digital Edge Magazine. Let's start our next panel discussion.
So, good evening, my fellow panelists, and Ellen, is it good morning? You're from Paris?
It's almost the end of the morning. It's 11:35 and I'm in France, but not in Paris. I live next to the European headquarters of Fortinet, near the city of Nice, if some of you have been in this area.
Wonderful, really appreciate connecting with you. From India, this panel is truly very knowledgeable, and you can say they beam with confidence and have years of experience in terms of defending their IT infrastructure and information infrastructure from the strategic point of view. Well, let me take you through the whole idea about this panel discussion. that security is a journey basically, and like a general, in the battlefield, you may have the access to the best of the weaponry, small arms and artillery and aircraft, every paraphernalia at your disposal. But for a general, the whole scenario is a complete integrated, pane of, overseeing the scenario. Just like the security leader, IT leader has a holistic view on the overall security strategy. So this topic is about defending IT infrastructure from the strategic point of view. So with me, there are, of course, as I mentioned, wonderful panel. I would request all the panelists to introduce themselves. We have, I can see, Dr. We have Dr. Makran Sawant, a senior IT, Mr. Deepak Fertilizers and Petrochemical Corporation Limited. Welcome, Mr. Sawant. And we have Mr. Saurav Chatterjee, President and Head IT, Bajaj Allianz General Insurance. Welcome, sir. And we have Mr. Narottam Sharma, Group CIO Mastec. And then we have quite popular in the CIO and CISO community, Dr. Lopa Mudra Basu, Executive Vice President, Security, Cyber Security and Technology Controls, JP Morgan Chase and Company. So with this brief introduction, I would ask Ellen to take the floor and put focus on the strategic, overview of security, and then he of course he will engage with all the esteemed panelists with his enlightened questions and exchange of thoughts. Over to you, Ellen.
Thank you, Kaysar, and I'm really honored to be part of this discussion today. You, lady and gentlemen, you represent such a diversity in the knowledge and experience, and I would ask you to tap into that experience to give our audience concrete examples of the themes that we will be debating. It's the experience that people cannot find on the internet that you represent that, in my opinion, is the value of debates like that. So to kick the ball rolling, and if Dr. Lopa Mudra allows me, I would start with you, Doctor, asking a first question that is really setting the scene. We used to protect perimeters. You remember those days when it was good enough to stick a proper firewall. There was an inside and an outside. And if you properly configure this firewall, you went with the idea that the traffic was safe between your company and the outside world. But things have changed so much to the point that it's becoming dangerous to think internal and external, because intuitively, internal is safe and external is not so safe. Whereas we've learned that danger can come from everywhere. And if you would take the example of a panel like this one, there is no internal and external. There is a web application that runs on your PC. There are cameras that film Kaysar. You have cameras on your PC. I have infrared mouse. I can tweak with Wi-Fi the various components of my camera. There is no interior. There is an activity going on. So, Dr. Lopa, do you think it is still appropriate to use the vocabulary of perimetric in the current state of IT and cybersecurity?
Very relevant question, Ellen. When it is coming to the term perimetric, actually I would say currently it's a extended perimeter, because the entire network becomes very complex. Now the business conducted over IT. Earlier, IT is a support function. Today, IT is a backbone of the business. And we as an industry realized that very much during the pandemic, that, you know, how much benefit we are getting from IT, because actually IT is an enabling factor during the pandemic, which actually helped every industry to continuously rotate the economic wheel of each of the country. Because if we are era where IT is not there, the entire system could have collapsed completely. So now when it is coming to perimeter, so you know, it's an extended perimeter where you extend your perimeter to your partner, you extend your perimeter to your employee home, because remote from home or remote from or work from home or work from anywhere. That's the concept today. Considering that, it is very much important that rather than focusing too much on the concept of perimeter, which earlier IT is having, as you mentioned very correctly, your you know, you have a firewall, you have a IPS device, monitoring back and forth of firewall that could be a production level 15 years back. But today, it is very important that we should know our technology asset, that is the infrastructure. We should know our information asset, what kind of asset is hosted where, moreover than who are able to access that up to what level. And there, we could say that that is the extended boundary. And we need to have a proper people, proper set of technology in place to monitor that. Because today it is not only stopping the attack, it is moreover, you know, continuously monitoring your attack surface and taking the action accordingly. Because monitoring is one of the part. The next part is building a capability to take the action over that actionable data which you are getting from your SIEM, from your eSIM, any other technology or your endpoint, because it is not only your external attack, as you very correctly mentioned, attack can come from any place, right? So there is nothing called trusted. It is a kind of, you know, validate and trust. So that's the two fundamental of security, any security. One is layer defense, another is zero trust concept. So that's how we are I think today redefining the perimeter.
Yes, thank you very much, Dr. Lopa. There were so many fundamental notions in what you just said. I will perhaps turn to Dr. Makaran Sawant to comment on some very key aspects that you highlighted. You pronounced one word, which is the business enablement of IT. And I think during the pandemic, we earned the right, if more than before, to be seen as business enablers. So it is not a vision of IT and cybersecurity that are blocks on the way to the super strategy and the creativity of our companies, but it is something that actually propels the innovation. And as we go about doing that, Dr. Makaran Sawant, do you think that that process is a virtuous process, or do you see more of the inherent risks of that over convergence between IT and security and business? How do you define the trends that Dr. Lopa very well highlighted for us?
Yeah, so as rightly said that because of the pandemic, suddenly now IT has become the backbone. Earlier, IT was just a support function, but today the entire business runs on the IT systems. And because there is no physical presence of the employees in the offices or in the plants, it is very much critical for them to get the work done sitting from wherever they are through the remote access that we are providing. And that is becoming more complicated, more, I would say, high risk thing, because you are now allowing your key assets of the organization to get accessed over a remote session. And earlier, as you said, the data was getting monitored through the firewall. But today, it is not about only one firewall controlling the entire setup. We are most probably having multiple setups, like we have in-premises assets which are getting exposed to the outer connections. There are certain assets sitting on cloud, and there are certain on private cloud, hybrid cloud. So providing access to all of these assets seamlessly with a very standardized way of authentication and security. I think there has to be a multi-layer approach in terms of establishing the security systems. So I think the upcoming framework of SASE, Zero Trust, is something which is going to be a new normal for any organization. So gone are the days that we are only dependent on the next-gen firewall or the UTM systems sitting in your data center. So there has to be intelligent solutions which can combine all of the access levels, may it be cloud or on-premises, may it be from company-owned device or the employee's own device. So it has to be seamless, and there has to be the same level of security through all channels that should be made available to the end user. Only then we can ensure that there is enough security, and whichever way the employee tries to access the assets of the organization, they will have to go through the same layer of securities, and that can ensure that the access is given in a very secured way, and the control remains with the information security IT team. So these are some key areas.
Thank you very much. You talked about the cloud, and Narottam is here as one of the very important provider of cloud services and mastery of distributed architecture. So my first question is inspired by you, Dr. Makaran, and goes to Narottam, if that's okay with you, Narottam. As we go about adopting more and more cloud distributed architecture, security seems at some point to be a bit of a challenge, right? So perhaps you could give us your view about how can we, at the same time, leverage all the business benefits of the cloud and low capex and distributed way of having software as a service everywhere, and maintain. Obviously, I have an opinion about that, but I'm interested into yours, Narottam, and maintain the unicity of the security policy across the hybrid multi-cloud architecture. If that's okay with you, Narottam, would you like to answer this?
Sure, absolutely. I think I was not on camera. I'm sorry. It's a double picture. I don't know why it's coming from my side. I'm on a single device, so it's maybe a breach itself. So with the light or not. So thank you so much, Alan, for this question. And let me try to do justice, because this is something which is evolving every day. So there's no right answer or wrong answer. It is a practice which we are building day by day, depending upon what's happening around. But let me set the context for this cloud thing. That first thing, that multi-cloud is going to be the only truth going forward if you need to accelerate for your business. Data is becoming prominent for everyone to access from multiple sources to get the right insights to drive your business. Ensuring your brand reputation while you are accelerating your business is key for every organization to do. Cybersecurity earlier was one part of it, but now, as we say, new thing, digital resilience, because we are in the time of digital revolution, and this is the century of digital revolution. And in that case, digital resilience becomes key aspect for every organization. And in that aspect, when we talk digital resilience, it's from a disruption other perspective. Clouds become a critical aspect for any company to grow. In that aspect, what I have 2-3 things to share. When you talk about cloud, you definitely need to ensure that what is the role as an organization you need to play to secure your data, because that itself is the first space where generally we have a very big myth, which is largely getting clear, but I still want to put it onto the table, that what is the role of a provider, what is the role of me as an organization when I adopt to the cloud in the security space. We think we have taken an IaaS service from a partner like Azure, Google or anything, and our job is over. No, that's not the case. It is only that you're changing the place where you were earlier to the other place as a service, but you need to ensure your security parameter. You move into PaaS and you move into SaaS, and then you have DevSecOps managing over the cloud, but you just leave it there. That's not the case. You need to look holistically what you need to do and what is the role you need to play in this entire space. Second is, as you said, that how do you monitor, how do you track, how do you take the action, how do you ensure that you have unified policies across the cloud, and more importantly, in a geographical changes as companies grow into multi-country, multi-aspect, how do you ensure right access, how do you ensure right policies and procedure. So my 1 cent is around that the world is moving towards platforms. People are not looking for product to solve the problems. And in the industry, there are platforms which try to solve these problems largely, and they allow you from a single console to monitor, single console to take action, single console to apply policies and procedures wherever it is possible. So my 1 cent here is that try to look for platforms which can help you. Try to look for holistically on an awareness perspective that what you need to control, what you need to put in on. And yeah, so I think with that, I just hold myself at this stage. I have a number of other things to share, but key takeaways, look for platform. No product can help you to support in a multi-cloud environment to secure your security. It needs to be uniform, and that can only happen by the platform approach. So that's
Thank you, Narottam. It is certainly one of the biggest trends that we witness. In fact, in what Narottam said, we have 2 big engines of the future of cybersecurity. The first is the cloud. 44% of growth year on year, and we're talking hundreds of billions. Probably one of the biggest trends we ever witnessed in IT and security altogether. And the second very big engine is this notion of platform, this holistic view of cybersecurity that is so critical today. Actually, there's one of the most famous industry analysts called the Gartner has come up with the cybersecurity mesh concepts that maps both what Narottam just described about the need for holistic view. You know, mesh is a vocabulary we use in network when everything is connected to everything and you have all these diagrams with the links everywhere. That is a mesh, right? And the cybersecurity mesh refer to the ability of the platforms of the future to embrace holistically all the components of cybersecurity, like in a fabric mode, like in an intricate and connected world. In the insurance business, we have seen a lot of innovations and a lot of acceleration. So what the insurance industry has done, as far as I can see, is not only maintaining the business during the pandemic, but continue to innovate with the ability to have online assessment by experts using video and etc. So obviously my next question go to Surab. In this very innovative way to get closer with the customer when you cannot get closer physically to him, what do you see as the perimeter, as a concept to follow or not to follow in this new ecosystem, Surab?
Thanks, Alan. Very interesting question. And see, I believe the perimeter, there's no perimeter anymore, right? I have a unique role of actually not just, running IT and security, but running businesses, right? I have the, as the digital P&Ls that I run. And I only believe today there has to be You have to evaluate the pros and cons in terms of what you bring to the end user versus the needs of the organization. Perimeter concept is dead. I mean, look, security, I believe from a practitioner's view, and I will purely say from a practitioner's view, security today and always has been about architecture, but more about philosophy and principles. And that philosophy and those principles changed. It's a fact, right now, 65% of my workloads are on the cloud. We were the first ones to turn on the public cloud with a core policy admin platform. 16, 17, when, we had to go back, even to the regulator at that point and, and convince them about all the processes and where the data is residing, et cetera, all the protocols related to it. Pandemic has been a very big learning for us. 74 million customers, right, and counting, giving them self-service tools. Right, millions of transactions that are happening, and these tools have picked up. It's not me. I mean, I would love to say IT has come center stage, and we were not a support function, and now we are driving businesses or business models. But there were organizations such as us who always believed IT as a strategic enabler, and we had invested in it over a period of time. We had absolutely no impact during COVID times. Whether it was people, whether it was processes. However, I think the paradigms have now. So to your question, coming back to your question around perimeter, the perimeter has disappeared. Perimeter is where your end user is. The perimeter could be in our context, our customers, millions of customers, our partners, our employees. They are working from in a hybrid mode anywhere, anytime, connecting anytime. So that's where the perimeter has gone. And therefore, I guess a balance is now needed. That context around 2-3 things, and I would say something that we'll have to evaluate with our context, with our domain, because there's no right answer for any one industry or any one organization. You'll have to look at the pros and cons of the risk that you can undertake versus the innovation or agility you actually want to give to the organization. Risk versus the agility that the organization will need. You'll have to balance between the tools, processes, and the people. Okay. As long as all this is coming in, whether through smart detection tools, whether you use ML, AI, I'm not a fan of big buzzwords, even though I'm a techie, right? At heart, ML has to be used for the relevance, and otherwise it dies in the organization. It will, remember, it stays as a POC or it stays as a small project, never scales up. Business has to see the relevance immediately, and it has to deliver either on the top line, bottom line, consumer experience, or or protection of whatever we say. It has to tie to those principles, and that's where I think the perimeter has gone. As long as that balance is there, as long as that is there, I believe we are on the right path. So, try to answer your question, from a practitioner's view in a different view. I would love to use technical terms. But end of the day, I believe security has to take a shift left approach. What I mean by shift left is it has to go back to the, back to the users and back to security by design, not as an afterthought. As long as we are able to do it in the organization, all your mesh, your architectures, your topology, everything will start making sense as long as we can do that. So that's my view.
Excellent, Saurabh. Thank you very much for bringing the practitioner view into the debate. Actually, the perimeter, the topological perimeter is gone, as you very well described. And there's another perimeter that is challenged now. It is the perimeter of the very function of the CIOs and the CISOs of this world. Like Saurabh said, 20 years ago, I would have asked a question to someone that is head of IT and president like Saurabh, and it would have been only acronyms and product names. And what Saurabh talked about us at the moment is, it is a businessman that masterizes the IT and the security at the same time. So it's a triple convergence: business, IT, and security in one role, in one head. And that is another perimeters that goes away. The perimeters of silo job into technology. I am turning to you, Dr. Lopa, if you're okay with that. the human dimension, the legal dimension, the leader dimension. Now we need to rally people to the cause of security. We need to be good communicating people. Is this possible? Is this just possible to have all these skills and this talent into one single head? What is your view on that, Dr. Lopa?
So, security is, I would say security and privacy is the integrated part of business today. They are not different. And there's a question coming time to time that, seesaw role or the security head role evolving at board level, and there are some challenges. But, if we look, there are some other CXO function. Practically, if we take a look like Chief Recs Officer, Chief Financial Officer, Chief Operating Officer, they are very successful role at board level apart from CEO. Now, coming to your question, is this possible that, all these need to be a part of a single person? So if we look at the other roles, I think that question is not very kind of big buzzword or something like that, because people has proven they are also an expert of their domain. Above that, they learn the business, they learn the dependent area and the implication related to business, related to challenge, and evolve that way. But yes, this role needs to be matured more over the time, and I agree with Saurav that techies need to speak the business language rather than using the buzzword, because it is not a business language. And also, when it is coming to the cyber strategy, just an example, how do you form a cyber strategy? You need to know what is your business, past, present, and future. Which geography you are operating? What are the legal requirements of the geography? What is the minimum compliance? Should the data of your client or end client is in a safe hand, also able to gain the trust of the stakeholder. So when you are doing all this activity, you need to think about the finance you are going to get for that. You need to look at your operation. If you are not bringing all this component together, then that strategy is not going to work for. I would say that, when a composer actually composing an orchestra, it's a very difficult job to compose an orchestra in a stage. And you need to bring the unique flavor of each of the player and use it in a very intelligent way to, enhance the fragrance of your composition, which is going to touch every mind and heart. So this is not an easy job, neither for CISO nor for CEO, but there are a few people, they can do it and do it confidently. So, you need to know each of your business, each of your stakeholder, and your team, your asset, your business territory. Then it is possible. Yes, it takes time. You cannot expect a person to be a master of all, but slowly the person can groom on that. It's not impossible.
Thank you, Dr. Lopa. A beautiful analogy about the orchestra and all the different musicians that you need to have played together. And yes, you're right. The chief of the orchestra has to be at the same time a good musician, but he has to be a leader. for the cybersecurity to be in harmony with the business. It's another set of skills. And it is more challenging, absolutely more challenging. And this is perhaps why, and this is a question perhaps for you, Dr. Makaran, because when you are in the petrochemical industry, you have lived a merger like everybody else, but maybe more than everybody else, of the industrial processes that used to be completely set apart from IT. And all of a sudden, someone in the financial department, generally the CFO, if not the CEO itself, highlights all the beauty of interchanging information between OT devices and processes and IT devices. Tell us a little bit how this perimeter dissolves another perimeters that goes away, which is the boundary between IT and OT. What is the advice you would like to give to people that are becoming this new chief of orchestra that Dr. Lopa so beautifully highlighted?
Yeah, so when it comes to IT and OT integration, now rightly said that there are certain processes which are triggered in the plants, which are more focused towards manufacturing, and the processes in the offices are more focused towards operating the business, sales, planning, and then forecasting. So the beauty of IT and OT is that if we integrate it and if we do a kind of forecasting or planning using both the data sets from the information technology systems as well as the OT systems, then a very real-time and accurate view can be generated for the management to take the right decisions. But it is at the same time, it is very challenging because when you see that the OT systems are getting exposed through the IT systems, then there is a new level of threat that is coming to the environment. And IT systems, if get compromised, they're easy to be recovered and easy to be restored. Or you can immediately keep them into an isolation and quarantine. But the OT systems, you cannot do the same methodologies there. You'll have to ensure that the plant is up and running all the time. The OT, the critical equipment that is running in the plant, there is no downtime for that equipment in any given scenario. So there are a lot of limitations when it comes to exposing the OT as compared to the IT systems. So whatever security that we want to build between the OT and IT has to be absolutely at the best operating in both the environments, because the kind of data that will get exchanged between the OT and the IT is something which is paramount important for the business. And if that gets compromised, or because of the exchange that is happening, if the OT setup gets compromised, then there is a direct business impact, and it is very difficult to recover from such an impact. And like the IT systems, we have HA, we have clusters, we have near DR, far DR. All of that is not very feasible in the OT network, because you cannot have a parallel plant running as a redundancy for you, right? So it is always that whatever device you want to integrate or get exposure from the OT, it has to be absolutely secured, and there you need to ensure that there is nothing that can have impacted or getting access which is beyond your control. So my take on this is only expose the devices if we have absolute control on the way you're exposing them to a particular IT or maybe cloud, and only give specific access which you know for sure that cannot have any impact in terms of bringing that system down. So, or in many cases where we have felt that it is not feasible to give a direct access, then we have created a gateway kind of a layer where we establish a platform which will bring the data, required data from the OT systems, and it will fetch it to the IT systems, and to ensure that there is no direct access or exposure of the critical device. So that is one methodology. And when it comes the way the SOC is operating for the IT posture, security posture, it is equally important that now the SOC has to equally monitor the OT posture also. And
Understood.
to ensure that all of the threats, may it be IT or OT, are getting addressed on day-to-day basis and are getting detected in real time.
Thank you very much, Dr. Makaran. You described all these phenomena of OT and IT converging and what do we want to protect. I would like Narottam to help us appreciate these in numbers and give an advice to people in charge of the information and security systems. Narottam, all this explosion of devices in petrochemicals, but also in insurance, in banking, have a price in terms of number of devices, areas where we need to store all this data and process it and make sense out of it. So this exponential explosion of data results in putting the people in charge of investing in a situation to explain that they need more budget, more storage budget because more data, more consulting budget because, and you know that because you're providing these services to architect and orchestrate, back to this key word, all that. How can we, as chief information officers and CIOs, explain to our board that we are going to need more budget and more resources to get all this running? What is your advice on this front?
Sure, Alan. Thank you. It's you know, I'm sure it's a deal which everyone does. So and everyone face the challenges also. But luckily, the context has changed post-pandemic. Things have moved towards more easier side to convince the board and the people, and the transition has happened, as I said, that from the time when you used to go as a proposal to the board or maybe to the management, now the management asks what is your roadmap for digital security and digital resilience to the company. So this is one shift which is happening, and that shift definitely helped you to get more mandate to transform. However, as you rightly mentioned, after that mandate, it comes to the numbers, that how much money you need, how much you need to expend, and that's where the entire game starts. And what practically we have done in last 4-5 cybersecurity transformations as the companies where I have done it, my personal experiences is, and as most of the panelists shared, you need to understand your business, you need to identify the risk, you need to identify the impact of that particular risk on the business. And if you look to have a holistic budget at one go, probably that may not be the right way to approach. Find the risk ratings of the issues which you identify, which have a major impact on your business or as a brand or as a business continuity or a resilience per se. Identify them, identify a perspective that which has a higher impact, and try to prioritize them depending upon the need, and try to distribute your budgets probably according to that particular. That is one way to look at it. Second is, as I said, I'll go back to this because this is practically I have done. Identify the ways, because none of these discussions we are doing for a new company to come in. We are talking about the companies which are in business, which have legacies, which have acquisitions, or probably have multiple systems running, or multiple security tools as well running. So there's a great opportunity to simplify and optimize. And that itself gives you a lot of opportunity to take out money which you are spending right now on your security if you move towards platform, because these platforms help you to optimize costs, give you a bigger, this is more from an internal perspective where you don't need much money to be asked from the board. From a board perspective, have it completely aligned to strategy, how the business is growing. In that space, what are the risks which are getting highlighted, to ensure that risk, what is the impact on the business, and vis-a-vis what money you are asking. So to summarize this, one is try to optimize the cost wherever it is possible in your existing setup. Second is, from a strategic perspective, align your initiatives to the business impact and the business rating. More importantly, on this and how you need to do it, that you need to understand the business. And as a CISO, your role is not to go and, or as a CIO, your role is not to go and say that I need 5 platforms to do this. You first need to understand the business strategy. In business under strategy, you need to understand the business, what we do. As one of the panelists was talking, that you have customer, you have partners, you have service lines, you have internal operations. Everywhere there are many things, and you need to understand the entire business gambit if you really want to be an impactful and a CISO or a CIO, or to deliver what business is needing. Things are changing on day by day. Keep learning, keep growing, but most importantly, have the business perspective, not the tech perspective. If you need money from the board, otherwise you will always be, I should say, said out of the board, coming out of the boardroom and say that people don't understand me. But the truth is just reverse, that you don't understand the business, hence you are not getting the money to deliver it. And the last is, which is more of behavioral, be perseverance in pursuing your ask. Don't give up by just leaving it if somebody says no and you give it up. And I'll share a very practical example on this. In one of my transformation journey of cybersecurity, we went with a bomb of, let's say, few crores to the CEO. But prior to that, we had CFO discussions and everything, and everyone agreed, and it was part of the strategy roadmap. And we were sitting for a discussion, and I opened this chart, and the CEO says, "Ravish, take it off and do it." So let's say if it was around 5 CR, he said, "Do it in 25 lakhs." So which is just peanuts in comparison to this. And we thought, why he's saying so? Because he was too bullish to have a cybersecurity strategies. What it mean? He wanted to check the conviction that what you have, and can you relook at it from a different perspective as a last thing. And we came back, we did our analysis, and we reduced a very minimal amount in this. But as we were very, very convinced, we wrote a mail to him. He was flying to some international trip, that Mr. So-and-so, we are going ahead, and this is what minimum we need. And we didn't ask. We simply said that we are doing, as a leader, sometimes you need to be firm in your call. And this is more of behavior, and it differs to individual to individual. So I'll not say this fits for all, but be persuasive in your, so this is something, Alan, my submission to it. And with this note, Alan, I am running in a workshop. I'm already late by 10 minutes. I said I'll be there for 30 minutes. If you allow, shall I move on? That will be great for me. And thank you so much, everyone, for good insights and taking them along. Thank you.
Thank you, Navratam. You introduced a notion that is moving away from cost to speak the language of business, and the language of business is risk. And if there is one domain where the risk is central to all the activity, in the ability to evaluate and to calculate the risk, I would say it's the insurance sector, Saurabh, right? Yeah. So you are a master of evaluating the risk and creating actual new processes in the risks. So how would you advise, because you masterize both, right? The insurance domain and as well the IT and security domain. Do you bridge the gap between these, and how would you suggest we do it?
Yeah, and I think you put it the right way. See, my business or my insurance business that we are in, we also underwrite a lot of cyber risks for different organizations, right? And there we are the risk underwriters, right? While of course for the organization, we have to manage that risk. I guess the key point is what Navratam was saying earlier, the key point is around prioritization. There will be hundreds of risks. You know, we if you would have heard about the Allianz risk, it gets published. Our joint venture partner is Allianz, and there we have a risk barometer which is there across the world, and it's a very famous identification of whether it's a climate risk, whether it's a cyber risk, whether it's any of the other risks. Cyber has now consistently taken the top spot, right? And even during the pandemic, right, cyber was right up there, right? And the way the whole classification happens is, as long as you know what is the risk, versus the impact of that risk. It's very simple. See, we try to make it more complicated. End of the day, it is the severity, multiplied by the impact. Right? As long as that is understood in your context for your business, I think the gap or the bridge can be easily built. The second is looking at it very minutely. See, nothing can be done in isolation today in terms of looking at the architectures or topology without the users in perspective. And the enterprise boundaries have expanded, right? So look at it again from a user standpoint. Look at it, prioritize it that way, and then the bridge can be easily looked at. The third would be, I guess, the biggest or the weakest link, right? When we look at risks or the risk, are the people involved, right? So it is the enterprise, it is the people element, it is the enterprise needed to be done awareness aspect. And is there a way to measure that awareness? Because that directly contributes to, again, the bridge between, how you underwrite versus what you take, choose to look at. So I guess these are the factors. I would, urge, there's enough, publicly available material out there, to talk about this. But this is how we look at it. When we underwrite a risk for any organization, we look at the impact, we look at their network architectures, what is the monitoring in place, how they are auditing, what are their processes. We also look at people involved. Are there skill sets there? What is the organizational, cyber quotient? We keep talking about digital quotient, right? Beyond all the IQ, we now keep talking about the DQ. I would say it has become now a cyber quotient, right? And this has to start right from the top. It is not just the end user, means even the highest level, the CEO of the organization onwards, right? Even the board. Are we making them aware, right, of all that? And it is our responsibility as as professionals who probably know a little bit more than everyone else and are managing this, to be able to bridge that gap. And this is what I feel, that's how we bridge.
We should wrap up in 5 minutes time, please.
Sure. Before we hand over to Kesar for concluding that, I would ask any of you to take 10 seconds, no more than 10 seconds. And we see all the perimeters to dissolve, right? The topological, the physical, business and IT, external and internal, OT, etc. Now, imagine that your young nephew comes to you and he's just got this beautiful promotion and becomes a cybersecurity officer, right? You have one advice for him in 15 seconds. The perimeter dissolves, the world is changing. What is your one advice to this young lady or young man that comes to you and asks for advice? Dr. Lopa, what would you say?
Understand your business, understand the entire attack surface, understand the tricks, how it is impacting business, and if it is within the business appetite or not, accordingly take the decision to enable the business. Don't become a showstopper.
Excellent. Certainly a great advice. Dr. Makarand, your advice to a young, brilliant person coming to you and say, I've just been promoted CISO. Give me something to do when I'm in the office on Monday.
My only advice to him would be, or she should be, that you first understand the context in which the business operates, and anything and everything that you do in terms of protecting that business should be in the right context.
Thank you. Very good. Surab, up to you.
Less than 10 seconds, I would say use common sense, right? Don't get by. You have learned, you have studied hard, you have already, made it, but use common sense, because most of the decisions are not that complex as long as you're using common sense to take this.
Thank you, all of you, for this sterling contribution to the debate. You've brought something that is not only the deep experience of your industry, but also the human dimension of the challenge of securing our world. And I think This is for me full of teachings. I hope it was for the audience. Kaysar, back to you for the overall conclusion of this debate.
I think it's pretty comprehensive, and I can see the audience getting enchanted with the beauty of knowledge and experience and distilled wisdom. I think that is quite self explanatory. It's wonderful panel that we all have watched. I would request the audience to give a big round of applause to a wonderful, highly experienced, and we as Indians are very proud of our people. India is a place of knowledge. Alan, nice connecting with you, really appreciate, and all the panelists, Dr. Lopa, Mr. Saurav, Dr. Savant, and Alan, you, really appreciate interacting with you, and thank you very much for being a part of this wonderful discussion.
Thank you.
And event. Thank you very much, really appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much everyone for this wonderful session. And now let's come to the next part. This is the keynote address. Please put your hands together. We have Dr. Pawan Duggal, Supreme Court lawyer and cyber law expert. Can we please put our hands together to welcome him on stage? A very warm welcome to you, sir.
बड़े भाई का क्या आशीर्वाद है सर जी 20 साल से 20 साल
2022 promises to bring new challenges. If you think you are done, think again. The WHO is saying that it's going to be by the end of 2022 that we could potentially be seeing the end of the pandemic. Which effectively means what? That our lives, while it's coming back to normal, has to be prepared for certain key changes. During COVID-19, while we were busy in trying to deal with our struggles, I was busy watching the impact of COVID-19 on cyberspace. So I wrote a book called New Cyber World, where I've argued that by the time nations are victorious against the current and subsequent wave of COVID-19 infections, we will enter into a new cyber age, where a new cyber world order would be awaiting us. This will be the new cyber world order where states will become very powerful, where cyber security breaches will be the new normal, where increasing cyber crimes will be a default option, and where there could even be interference in your digital rights. So consequently, we could also see a migration of users from the superficial net onto the dark net. And I think when I'm looking at the trends emerging, things are falling in place. Look at the laws that countries have passed. They're all in a direction of making countries very strong. Let's give an example. In Hungary, they passed laws which have authorized the current government to keep on governing till such time the country is victorious against not only the current wave of COVID-19, but also other subsequent waves of COVID-19 as will come up in the future. So a license to govern is what's the new mandate that's coming across. Further, with COVID-19, the golden age of cybercrime has already begun. You may not think about it. Yes, cybercrime has been with us for the last more than 50 years. But the manner, the manifestations, the avatars, and the economic impact of cybercrimes is unprecedented that we've seen during COVID-19. 2021, the world lost more than $6 trillion thanks to cybersecurity breaches and cybercrimes. Come 2022 end, and we could land up losing $8.5 trillion US dollars thanks to cybercrimes and cybersecurity breaches. So what does it actually mean to us? Well, what it means to us is that let's give a tata goodbye to perimeter security, because that's not on. With work from home coming on, today, let's realize that we are at a very unique juncture of our history. In the Indian context, I find that we are exposed from all angles. You don't exactly are in a position to predict when, how, where somebody is going to attack you. So, when these people are working from home and these work from home devices are getting connected to the internet, you have to be prepared for malicious attacks. You look at ransomware and you need to be concerned. One company every 11 seconds becomes a victim of a ransomware attack. And that's not sufficient. A lot of companies in India choose not to complain. Logically so. Why should I complain that I have been cyber breached? Because if I complain, people will think that I'm insecure. I'm not worth doing business for. Little do you start realizing that while you were busy in your normal works, the government quietly changed the law of the land. The government has now come up with new rules and regulations which now mandate reporting of cybersecurity breaches. So, if a breach takes place in your company and you choose not to report, think again. It's 1 year jail time waiting for you. It's an offense that's been made punishable. Further, you all now have to work across with new sets of compliances. 25th of February 2021, the government of India quietly notified rules. These were known as the Information Technology, Intermediary Guidelines and Digital Media Ethics Rules 2021. Long name. If the name is so long, who will have the patience to read these rules? Think again. You go deep inside and you realize, wow, the government has now mandated you to do a number of things which you thought you never were required to do. For example, if you are an intermediary, then you now have an added list of compliances that you need to do. Now you will say, who's an intermediary? An Airtel is an intermediary, a Vodafone is an intermediary, but I'm a normal company. I'm doing my IT business. Think again. The law has quietly defined intermediary to say, any company who, with respect to any particular electronic records, deals, handles, stores with that record, or processes it in any manner whatsoever, you become an intermediary. So this is amazing. The way they've drafted it, 99% of companies in India qualify as intermediaries. Why? Because if you are a company, and if you're using computers, if you're using mobiles, or if you're using third-party data on your systems, the data could be of your customers, clients, partners, employees. Welcome to the party. You are an intermediary. So what happens? So if you're an intermediary, think of a scene that you are on a small boat and your boat is being sucked into a huge whirlpool that's coming. That's your exact position. The Indian IT law has now gotten various series of compliances for you. And this new set of compliances have come in effective 25th February 21. In a nutshell, what they want you to do. They want you to put in place reasonable security practices and procedures while you handle a process with third-party data. The law says, if you are following ISO 27001, I will presume that you are complying with the reasonable security practices and procedures. The law says any cybersecurity breach takes place, please mandatorily report it to the nodal agency on cybersecurity, being the Indian Computer Emergency Response Team. The law says if you find any cybercrime happening on a network, you have to instantaneously report. The law says if the government asks you, please preserve data, preserve it for a minimum period of 180 days. And of course, if they want you to extend the time, preserve it for an extended period of time. The law says if there's any content on your network that's in violation of the law, it's your responsibility to remove or disable access once you get an order from a court of competent jurisdiction or an order from a governmental agency. You choose not to respond, and then you open up a Pandora's box of legal liability. So, if you think the government was busy fighting the pandemic, think again. They've also now started issuing letters to companies. These are companies where cybersecurity breaches have taken place, and they are now started getting letters. Sir, we have come to know in the public domain that this breach took place. Did you report it? Please give us the report. If you did not report it, would you show cause why you have not given this report? So whether you are in Air India, where you land up losing 45 lakh accounts, details of your customers, including their passports and credit card numbers, or whether you are Domino's of India, the fact remains is you are all covered under this law. But then you thought, hold on, India never had a cybersecurity law. Yes, you are bang on target. India is at a very unique juncture of history. It's a transient time where there's a huge vacuum in policy. India only does not have in place, a cybersecurity law. It does not have in place a data protection law. It also does not have in place a data privacy law. So you are free to do what you want to do, but really think again. The dynamics are quickly changing. The government is coming up with the National Cybersecurity Strategy 2022, which incidentally will not only be for the government, but also will be for the private sector. In addition, the Personal Data Protection Bill is now being remodeled. From just mere concentration on protection of personal data, they are making it as broad to say an umbrella legislation on data protection, including personal data and non-personal data. If you think Aadhaar is good enough, think again. Aadhaar breaches are happening left, right, and center. The Aadhaar ecosystem is constantly unsecured. Well, yes, the central identity is data repository, where your and mine biometrics are located, that's safe. But the moment the government said, let's join other things up here, whether it's income tax, whether it's bank records, whether it's your other records, you started creating an ecosystem around Aadhaar. This ecosystem is a porous ecosystem. It's leaking all the way. So thumb rule is, if as an individual, you're asked for Aadhaar, your first option should be, I don't want to use my Aadhaar. Because if your Aadhaar gets misused, think again, you don't even have any remedy. Look at the Aadhaar Act, and the Aadhaar Act strips you of even the basic right to get a FIR registered in the event your Aadhaar gets compromised. You cannot file a criminal complaint. Only the Unique Identification Authority of India can file a complaint. So, if as an individual, you can avoid using Aadhaar, that's one of the best ways you can do good service to yourself, till such time the ecosystem becomes more secure. But I think the government is doing some remarkable work. We are likely to now see some new legislative development impacting cybersecurity. Till such time that happens, let's realize that we are in the Bollywood industry nation. Bollywood films are fantastic. We love them, right? But the Indian policymakers also love Bollywood films. So they have been massively impressed by the Bollywood masala film formula. So they'll end up coming up with legislations that are typical like a Bollywood masala film. Look at the Indian Information Technology Act 2000, the Indian Cyber Law. You thought that was one legislation that's going to be a sector-specific legislation? Well, that's everybody thought 22 years back when the Parliament passed this law. Nobody had the slightest imagination, not even the Parliament, how over a period of time, the Information Technology Act 2000 is going to become one of your three fundamental laws in the history of independent India. The other two being the Constitution of India and the Indian Penal Code. Why? Anything electronic in India gets covered under this law. Close your eyes. Ask yourself, any action done using computers, computer systems, computer networks, computer resources, communication devices, as also data and information in the electronic form, you get covered under this new law. This law is 22 years old. And we have not been very successful in amending it very quickly. We only amended it once in 2008 after the Mumbai attacks. Since then, technology has been moving very rapidly. But unfortunately, we have not been able to keep pace. But now, while we are in a unique kind of a mix, other nations are not waiting. Look at China. China has now come up with 3 distinctive national laws on cybersecurity over the last few years. Look at a small country like Vietnam. Vietnam has now come up with a new cybersecurity law that comes up with a fantastic concept. The concept is that of a national cyberspace. Hold on, we thought cyberspace was universal. It was a heritage of human mankind. It doesn't belong to anyone. But Vietnam law says the entire internet is my national cyberspace. So anything that happens in the internet will be subject to my laws and my jurisdiction. So that's now the new way how countries are moving forward. More and more cybersecurity laws coming up. But I think we're now at a very interesting cusp where a lot of work will have to be done in terms of the intersection of law and emerging technologies. Let's look at artificial intelligence. India has still not made up its mind what it wants to do on artificial intelligence. But globally, the European Union has come up with a draft law on artificial intelligence. The state of Illinois in the United States has already implemented a law on artificial intelligence called the Illinois Artificial Intelligence Video Interview Act. On top of it now, blockchain is gaining reasonable maturity. But this mad frenzy about cryptocurrencies has suddenly taken everybody off guard. Today, almost everybody is investing in cryptocurrencies. My personal feeling is that give yourself a few years, few months, that you'll find that a majority, more than two-thirds of the people who are investing in cryptocurrencies will end up losing a lot of money. Yes, some people will make a lot of money, but there are no legal safeguards, no legal protections should you end up losing money. Why? Because India chooses not to really come up with any cogent legal approach on cryptocurrencies. We haven't even answered ourselves the fundamental question, is cryptocurrency legal in India? Well, Budget 2022 says, pay 30% tax and your transaction on crypto assets is good for us. They have not gone ahead to say whether it's legal or not. But a normal presumption is if you pay 30% tax on sale or purchase of crypto assets, when the government gets its 30%, obviously the rest 70% is legal. But now comes the new statement from the Reserve Bank of India governor, who says, well, tulips have more value than crypto assets. So we are now beginning to see various conflicting signals. Until such time we don't come up with holistic legal approaches on these new emerging technologies, it's going to be problematic. Why? Because you cannot really have a country to flourish in these very uncertain policy times. You need to have minimal enabling regulation. The entire corporate sector doesn't want interference. We want minimal enablement, and you let us do our job. We will drive the economy. That has to be the message. But unfortunately, we're now beginning to see areas where a lot of regulation is coming in. Look at the new Personal Data Protection Bill. The government says, all of you corporates, you're in one hemisphere. Comply with the entire parameters of the law. For the rest of the government, it's another hemisphere. They will not comply with this law. So we are now going to see a dichotomy of hemispheres that's happening within our own country. A lot of intensive challenges are waiting for us. A lot of work needs to be done. But I think focus will have to come back on how we have a more holistic approach on cybersecurity. I don't exactly know what's the real answer, but I can tell you India needs to do a lot of homework in terms of coming up with a dedicated law on cybersecurity. And that's going to help immensely. Otherwise, what does India do when the Mumbai grid gets attacked? What does India do when a nuclear power station gets attacked? We do nothing because we have no legal frameworks to do anything. Look at other countries and you see the China model. You know, China has come up with a very interesting concept of cyber sovereignty. They were the first nation who pioneered this concept, saying, look, my sovereignty as a nation extends not within the territorial boundaries of China. It extends to outer space, deep sea beds, to the Arctic, the Antarctic, and to the entire cyberspace. That's the new concept that started coming in. So remember Antarctic, when countries quickly discovered the Antarctic, everybody was sending expeditions there. Why? Put your flag in one portion of the Antarctic, declare this is my territory, so that my laws will apply. Something similar is what's currently happening as far as cybersecurity legal frameworks globally is concerned. The problem is global, there's a huge policy vacuum. There's no international cyber law in place. There's no international cybersecurity law in place. So each one to their own. And let's face it, countries don't want any kind of a law. Why? Because countries are doing both covert and overt activities. Nobody really wants a naming and shaming process where somebody can be named and shamed and saying, look, this person did this or this country did that. So in these transient times, let's brace ourselves to have a new mindset. The mindset will have to go on cyber resilience. The mindset will have to keep in mind the emerging Web 3.0 and this new decentralized economy that's coming in. The emerging mindset will have to look at edge security. If you think that you can ignore edge security while you're talking about cyber security, you're grossly mistaken. Because more and more, the focus of the arc light of cybersecurity is going on edge security. A lot of work needs to be done, but capacity building, I believe, is of crucial necessity. We've created an online platform called cyberlawuniversity.com, where you offer online courses on cyber laws, cyber crime, cyber security, and AI to stakeholders across the world. So when 27,000 stakeholders from 174 countries land up doing your courses over 3 years, the figures are only telling you one thing, that I think the time has come for more capacity building. COVID-19 has told us we will now have to revisit our skill sets. We don't know how to deal with the new future. And the best way will be to constantly keep on reworking on our cyber skills, our soft skills, because it's hard to predict how things are going to happen. The next 24 months is what is expected to be the minimum time frame by the time we could see the end of the pandemic in all complete measures. So in these kind of scenarios, we'll have to focus back on more holistic approaches. We'll have to fight through very strange times. But I think while industry is slowly limping back to normal, it'll be the onus responsibility of legal frameworks, of policymakers, to come up with enabling legal frameworks that does minimal compliances, does minimal enablement, and let the ecosystem grow on its own. I hope we should see some very cogent developments in this regard. Till such time that doesn't happen, please remember, you are in deep sea. You are surrounded by sharks all around. The onus is on you. Protect yourself, protect your data, imbibe cyber resilience as a part of your day-to-day ecosystem. Otherwise, you can very well say tata bye-bye to all kinds of potential cyber security approaches that you will have in your mind. It's a different world. Cyber criminals are laughing all the way to the bank. Initially, we used to have a Jamtara in Chhattisgarh. And we said only there's one Jamtara. That area where, everybody was doing cybercrime. But did you realize during the pandemic, there has been now cottage industrialization of Jamtara. The Jamtara model has now started getting proliferated in different parts of the country. In small areas. Why? People have lost their jobs. They don't have any money. So cybercrime is a fantastic way on how you can go ahead and generate more money. So people are losing money. The other day I got a call from my teacher who had taught me history in school. Imagine an 84-year-old teacher, and that particular person got a call from supposedly his bank asking for some credentials which he gave, and within a minute 80,000 rupees were gone. We lodged an FIR. We were not able to get the money back because by the time we were able to get some work done, the money had been taken out of the system. So right now what's happening? We are saying, okay, let's now look at the legal approaches. And this is one last final point I want to talk before I leave. If tomorrow you or somebody in your network gets impacted by a cyber security breach or a cyber crime, you'll end up losing money. There's an unauthorized transaction into your account, or your credit card, debit card has been unauthorizedly used. Don't panic. The Reserve Bank of India has now come up with a new notification. The Reserve Bank of India says if the transaction has been done unauthorizedly, or that you have not contributed to it, then you must, within the first 72 hours, report this to the bank in writing. If you do that within 72 hours, the bank is duty-bound to return back the entire money to you. If you report after 72 hours and within 10 days, the bank will return you 90% of the money back. And should you report after 10 days, then you will get only monies depending on the policies of the bank. So a lot of people don't know about this. In case this happens, and this is happening in every family that I know, please get your monies back. Please get appropriate claims to the bank. And don't forget, Indian banks are fantastic in putting you off. They are fantastic in telling you, look, I will come, I'll see this tomorrow, day after, or the next month. You'll have to constantly pester them, follow them. The law is there for you to get your money back, but much better than trying to follow money that's already been lost. It's much better prevention is better than cure. Try to be as duly diligent as possible. These are fantastic times, but also challenging times which require more challenging approaches, methodologies, and perspectives as we move forward. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. It's been a pleasure talking.
Thank you so much, sir, for sharing such great information. Now we have a keynote address by Mr. Sanjeev Krishnan, Chairman, Iris Group of Companies. Can we please have Mr. Sanjeev Krishnan with us? Please put your hands together and welcome.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I have been allocated 10 minutes to talk about the impact of COVID and what we can look forward to post-COVID. Has there been an impact of COVID on IRIS? Yes, very definitely. On an average, we were billing 100 crore per month. When COVID hit and the lockdown happened in April, our turnover dropped from 100 crores to 11 crore. We didn't know at that time whether it will go up or whether it will go down further. But fortunately for us, the next month, which was May, the turnover came up from 11 crores to 55 crore. And since then, from June onwards, we are back to 100 crore per month. The reason we feel that this has happened is because, one, the approach that we took was that we must move forward. We must not let restrictions and lockdowns spoil our business. So we opened our warehouses as soon as the government allowed us to open them. We were delivering crucial deliveries during the lockdown period by getting special permits, and we wanted to ensure that we did not let COVID impact our business. This is easier said than done, because when you have COVID, you're not sure whether the results are going to, whether the orders are going to come or not come, whether they'll get delayed or not delayed. But our experience shows that business was happening, and we've done some fairly large orders during the time when lockdowns were there. We did a 55 crore order for Kendriya Vidyalaya, where we delivered 8,000 desktops all over the country. We had another project, which was a very interesting one in Bihar. There is an NGO, there is an organization there which goes and teaches women in the villages how to run their own businesses. And until recently, the people who were teaching the village women were going and writing on a blackboard or on a sheet to explain the concepts of how women can run their own business. So one of our partners went over there and introduced the concept of a pocket projector. So this pocket projector runs on a battery. There's no electricity required for it. You can just set it up in any village, anywhere where there is a wall or a sheet, and you can project. And this was a 12 crore order which we executed to help women empowerment in Bihar. So businesses are happening today and orders are coming. What we need to look for is, one, plain IT, what people can do in their IT usage. But more than that, I would urge you to look at, as partners, look at new opportunities which are available to us in the country. A very simple new opportunity which we see coming up is that the Delhi government has passed a law that any vehicles which are more than 10 years old with diesel engines have to be removed off the roads. 15 years for petrol and 10 years for diesel. But that ban also extends to diesel generators. So the people can come to your house and say that you have violated a law because you are running a diesel generator which is more than 10 years old. And I discovered this by accident. Suddenly we saw our neighbor, the big crane came, and they were lifting off a 60 kVA generator from that house and taking it away. And I said, what happened? They said, it's more than 10 years old. Now we have to replace it. And they've replaced it with UPSs. So today you can get UPSs which are 40 kVA, 60 kVA. If you install a 40 kVA UPS in a house, all your air conditioners will run, all your geysers will run, everything will run. And this is a big opportunity, because not only do you get a silent engine, you get a clean engine, and you have no diesel problems. You don't have to run the thing, you just have to replace the batteries, which may be after 2 years or 3 years. So these are opportunities which are available in Delhi, and we should all look at them as possible ways of increasing our business. Second, related to this is batteries. Today there's so much technology going into batteries. If you look at ordinary batteries, they're lead acid batteries, and the warranty that you get is 3 years. A new technology has been announced in India where 2-3 manufacturers are making these batteries, where instead of lead and acid, they have got gel inside the batteries. So the life becomes longer. Instead of 3 years, it's a 5-year period. It's a marginally increase in cost, but look at the headache that you save when you install these batteries, which are 5 years instead of 3 years warranted from the supplier. This is new technology. If you have the interest in this, get involved in this, because new tenders will come, and these are the kind of things that you can put into tenders so that you can secure the business. I was very happily surprised to find that the person who is making these gel batteries has received an order for $500,000 from APC Philippines. So that's the kind of opportunities that will come up as we go forward. The third area of opportunities which I see is CCTV cameras. There are a lot of cameras which are getting installed in the country today. The Supreme Court has passed a judgment that every single police station in the country has to have CCTV cameras, because the thought being that there's more crime going on inside the police station than outside. And sounds very simple, installing a camera in a jail, but when you multiply it by the number of police stations, and then you realize that whatever data feed is coming from the cameras, those all have to be stored. So you have large storage devices that are required. You need servers to manage the storage. So all this builds up, and we've ended up with a 60 crore order from Odisha to install CCTV cameras in the jails. And that is just one state. Multiple states are available, multiple opportunities are available. And the last point I want to cover is technology. Dell has announced storage, the Power Store, which are a change in technology. Earlier, a 1 TB drive could store 1 TB of data. Now that same drive, through using artificial intelligence, can store a factor of 4, which means 4 TB of data instead of 1 TB of data. So it's important that have a look at these technologies, position them with customers, and then make use of the fact that the world is moving, COVID is going to be behind us, new opportunities are coming, and I wish you all the very best in the future. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. We are so delighted to have you. Please put our hands together, everyone. So with this, we are done with the long day of discussions and keynotes. So first of all, thank you so much, all of you, for being here.